Chapter 20. Baravi. Sylvia studied Baravi from head to toe. He was nothing even close to what she was expecting. It was actually shocking. For starters, he looked normal. She was expecting some sort of hardened monster of a man. She imagined him being 6.5 feet tall, muscular, and covered with hair. She was expecting him to be wearing jeans and a flannel with some tattoos on his arms and plenty of scars. She was expecting him to be the kind of man who could take over a building in a zombie-infested hellhole without batting an eye. The man standing in front of her was in his late 30s. He was bald and he was wearing glasses. He looked like he was slightly overweight, but at the same time, it also looked like he did a lot of push-ups. He was wearing jeans, a white t-shirt, and most oddly, a bathrobe. She didn't know what to think about him. Before she could fully come to terms with Baravi's appearance, he broke the ice by asking, "Why are you here?" Before she could answer, he asked, "What do you think I should do with you?" What do you want?" Sylvia stuttered. She managed to get her brain to accept the situation and start processing. "I have everything I want," Baravi replied nonchalantly. "So you want to have naked people in cages?" Sylvia blurted out. She wanted to get him off balance, but that might have been a step too far. She immediately regretted it and resisted the urge to cover her mouth. "Those are the people who broke the rules. Or rather, the people who broke the lesser rules," Baravi said plainly. He made it seem like the cage was the obvious consequence of breaking the rules. "So there are greater rules?" Sylvia asked, now well past regular confusion and into the bounds of advanced confusion. "That would rationally follow if there are lesser rules, would it not? At any rate, the people who break the greater rules tend not to stick around for very long." Baravi trailed off, making a cutting gesture to his neck. Then he started walking towards her. "The nakedness has several purposes," he explained. "Aside from stripping the rule breaker down to their innermost self, it humbles them, making them easier to manage. Not many people are keen on attacking an armored guard while naked. The cages also have an integrated shower system along with heated floors. Every morning the rule breakers get a 20-minute shower. Every night the floors stay at a steady 70 degrees. I think it's an elegant solution to the rule breaker problem." Holy shit, this guy is completely nuts, Sylvia thought, doing her best to stand her ground. "Speaking of showers, what was the reason you decided to humiliate me the second I entered the building?" She tried to slip a bit of anger into her accusation. Her plan to throw him for a loop wasn't working. However, all hope wasn't lost. She was starting to gain her intellectual balance, and she wanted to push Baravi a bit to feel him out. She needed to figure out just how crazy he actually was. He laughed. Then, as if it was completely obvious, he said, "I don't let people come up to the penthouse covered in filth. Also, we needed to make sure you weren't infected or diseased. It's not like we could take your word for it." Wow, Sylvia thought in terror. That actually made sense. "Don't tell me you thought the shower was because we were keen on seeing your forbidden fruit." Baravi laughed again before adding, "I hate to break it to you, but you're kind of scrawny. I doubt anyone here would want to waste time looking at you." Baravi's last comment hit Sylvia in the face like a ton of bricks. She hadn't seen herself in front of a full-length mirror since she left the cabin. No one in her whole life had ever said something more insulting. She didn't know what to say. Baravi didn't give her time to come up with something either. "So I ask again, why are you here?" Baravi said, pointing to her chest. This time, Sylvia was more ready to respond. Her shock was quickly turning into a fiery rage. Baravi looked like an overgrown bald potato sack. He wasn't in any place to judge her appearance. "I'm looking for a safe place to live," she answered, struggling to keep calm and collected. "Nowhere is safe. We don't tolerate freeloaders around here," Baravi said, casually, as if simply stating a fact. "Are you in charge?" Sylvia asked, trying to change the subject away from her. In response, he just gestured to the penthouse. "Do you have any treasure or any useful skills?" he asked. It was clear he was about to begin initiating another round of attacks. Not knowing what else to say, Sylvia looked at the floor momentarily and remained silent. "Ah, no, I see. So then what do you have to offer? Why should we let you stay here?" he asked. The question triggered a cascade of thoughts for Sylvia. Was now the time to play her Swift City card? Baravi hadn't said a single thing so far to indicate he had the slightest interest in Swift City. He hadn't even acknowledged that it existed. He was still standing a few feet away from her. He was studying her closely. After about 20 seconds of this, he turned and started walking away. The longer you think, the less likely I am to believe what you say. You don't seem very trustworthy. I don't think we have any use for you, he said, clearly disinterested. This caught Sylvia off guard yet again. She didn't know how to talk to this guy. She took a step forward to defend herself, but Baravi suddenly turned and said, I may be wrong, actually. A rare occurrence, to be sure. I'm actually looking for a new mistress. You're not really my type. Like I said, much too malnourished. But if you want the job, I suppose you can have it. I don't really like your face, and your shoulders are too wide for the rest of your frame, but I suppose you can wear a mask or something. This comment hit Sylvia in the face like a lead-lined boxing glove. It was hard to tell if this was worse or better than the ton of bricks. She did an actual double take. It registered immediately as the most offensive thing anyone ever said to her, but she thought it was a pathetic attempt at a joke at first. Not only was he building on calling her scrawny, but she now was also malnourished and wide-shouldered, and he didn't like her face. It was only after a few seconds that she realized that he was being earnest about the mistress proposition. That made her recoil and feel appalled. While she was working through that roller coaster, Baravi wasn't even watching the ride. Instead, it looked like he was seriously contemplating the prospect of having to degrade himself to the level of accepting her as a mistress. It seemed to bother him substantially, but he was struggling valiantly to overcome the repulsion he had to the idea. Once he seemingly won the mental battle, he turned and continued walking away from Sylvia, who was still dumbfounded. Yeah, I think we could make that work. It wouldn't be ideal, but I think I'd be okay with it. But if you don't want to, then we'll get you out of here and down to the cages. Now that you've seen the inside of the tower, we can't afford to let you leave, he said, as if that much was obvious to anyone with half a brain. The threat of cages proved to be enough of a jolt to finally get Sylvia to explode. What the actual hell is wrong with you? And why can't I leave this stupid place? She just about ended up shouting. She was now breathing hard and she was red in the face. The prospect of strangling Baravi with her bare hands on the spot was rapidly becoming a very attractive option. Her shouting was enough to get Baravi to stop walking and turn back around. He faced her for a moment, studying her some more. He finally said, I have enemies outside the walls. A few months ago, they blew up almost 24 of my citizens. They also slaughtered several hundred zombies. A force with that kind of power can't be allowed to know what's inside my walls. If they find out, they'll want to take it. This was it. Sylvia realized her moment arrived. Oh, so you're talking about Swift City. Cesar and Hansen and those guys, Sylvia gambled. Hopefully Jarrett was right about this guy wanting the inside track on Swift City. Otherwise, she'd be headed to a cage. The words actually seemed to hit Baravi physically. For the first time since he entered, his expression changed from disinterest to something completely different. If she had to describe it with a single word, she'd call it the face of obsession. He started walking back towards her. She wasn't sure how she felt about that. What do you know of Swift City, he asked, and more importantly, what do you know about Cesar and Hansen? I'm actually from Swift City, she explained. Baravi was now standing just a foot away from her. He was definitely invading her personal space. If you're from Swift City, then what are you doing here, he asked. Sylvia suddenly became aware of the guards in the room. They were now standing just a few feet away from her as well. It looked like they were ready to take her out if she tried anything funny. I was exiled from it. I was one of the rebellion's leaders that tried to overthrow Cesar and Major Hansen, she lied. She couldn't lead a meeting, much less a rebellion. Ah, so you're the one known as Sylvia Beaton, Baravi said, nodding to himself. He turned and walked away again. This gave Sylvia a chance to start breathing again. She hadn't realized that she stopped, but evidently she did. Her heartbeat was also pounding in her ears. She was surprised that the lie took that much of a toll on her. Obviously, she had nothing to do with the overthrow beyond getting swept up in it, but that wasn't the official Swift City statement, so she felt like she had a right to use it to her advantage. Baravi stopped at the door and said, Perhaps there is a place for you here after all, Miss Beaton. Please take a seat. You look like you're about to collapse. Then he disappeared through the door he entered, leaving Sylvia to try and figure out what just happened.